Welcome, bienvenidos, bienvenidos. It is wonderful to have you once again with us. Today's webinar is the last one in the series of the Vision Zero Challenge webinar. Today we will be reflecting on 2020 and we will talk about what is next for 2021. This is the agenda today. Our Urban Director for WRI, Sergio Aveleda, will be joining us and he will welcome us and give introductions to the panelists. Then we will have a presentation about the UN Second Decade of Action for Road Safety and the Stockholm Declaration from Dr. Etienne Crook. I will be making a recap of all our webinars and we will have the Menti poll, so get ready, and we will then have an amazing panel to discuss what comes next. Finally, Mats Åke Berlin, the director of the Vision Zero Academy at the Swedish Transport Administration, will be giving his closing remarks. And with that, I would like to turn to Sergio Aveleda. Sergio, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Claudia. Welcome everyone who is joining this amazing Vision Zero Challenge, this journey on Latin America to support cities to implement the Vision Zero methodology to eliminate fatalities on traffic. So welcome our amazing cities, Arequipa in Peru, Belo Horizonte, Brasil, capital de Minas Gerais, Buenos Aires, Argentina, Bogotá, Colômbia, Cali, also Colombia, Curitiba, Brazil, Colima, in Mexico, Cusco, Peru, Fortaleza, northeast of Brazil, amazing Guadalajara from Mexico, Indaiatuba, it's close, I'm in São Paulo just right now, I'm closer than Indaiatuba in Brazil, La Paz, the highest city here probably, Bolivia, Lima, amazing Lima, welcome, Medellín, Colombia and Mérida, Mexico, Montevideo, Uruguay, Pachuca in Mexico, Rosario, Argentina, Salvador, Brazil, Santiago de Chile, São Paulo, where I am just right now in Brazil, and my background is São Paulo downtown, São José, Costa Rica, São Salvador, El Salvador, and Santa Cruz, Bolivia. Amazing group of cities, iconic cities in Latin America that are working to eliminate fatalities in traffic. Next slide, please. Thank you very much. I want to say thank you very much for these organizations who is joining with us from WRI, this Vision Zero Challenge. It's a very important group of entities that are working together to develop these webinars and this challenge. FIA Foundation, a traditional entity that is supporting different initiatives around the world in road safety. Fundación Gonzalo Rodrigues, very important organization from Uruguay working in Latin America on road safety. Inter-American Development Bank, our American bank to support countries, cities to develop, and they are doing an amazing job in transportation and in road safety. ITF, International Transport Forum, important organization that conduct a lot of researches and work on transportation. LatinCap, organization dedicated to road safety. Towards Zero Foundation, helping a lot to spread Vision Zero Challenge, Vision Zero message. Vision Zero Academy, also an important organization spreading the road safety message. UK Aid, the UK Development Agency, thank you very much for your partnership. And Global Road Safety Facility and the World Bank Group, amazing organizations focusing on on road safety, very, very amazing work that they are doing on transportation and safety. Thank you very much. Thank you, our sponsors who made it feasible, who supported us to develop this challenge. 3M, amazing innovative company. PTV Group, dedicated to support cities and private sector to develop different solutions for urban mobility. And Volvo Group, a very committed organization with road safety. Thank you very much for your support. Now, please be aware to use the chat. All panelists and attendees, please select this option to submit your questions. All your questions will be considered by the organizers, but you should use this option, chat all panelists and attendees to submit your questions. Today we have an amazing panelists, the very important authorities and leaders on road safety. It is a pleasure for us from WRI to introduce you our panelists today. I will ask our panelists to introduce themselves in a short and a brief introduction. Etienne Krug, who is Director of Department of the Social Determinants of Health on WHO, World Health Organization in Switzerland. Please, Etienne, introduce yourself in a brief introduction. Thank you.
Muito bom dia, buenos dias. Hi, everybody. It's a pleasure to be with you. I'm Etienne Krug. I'm director at the World Health Organization, as was just said, and I also chair the United Nations Road Safety Collaboration.
Thank you, Etienne. We are excited to hear you today. Mariana Alegre, she is an executive director in an important organization in Peru, Lima, como vamos? Please, Mariana, introduce yourself.
Hello, hi, I'm Mariana Alegre. I'm very, very happy to be here, and I am very, very prone to have our city, Lima, and other cities in Peru join the network so we can actually have less fatalities and have a better quality. Thank you, Sergio.
Thank you, Mariana, for joining. Thank you very much. Sergio Martinez, who is Subsecretary of Mobility Policy, District Mobility Agency in Bogotá. Mi tocayo, Sergio, welcome. Thank you very much for joining. Please introduce yourself.
Yes, good morning. Thank you, Tocayo. Well, my name is Sergio, obviously, Martinez. I'm the Undersecretary of Mobility Policy at the Secretary of Mobility at Bogotá. And we're in charge of leading Vision Zero for Bogotá. So, you know, we're very honored to be here with you guys and, you know, really happy to be able to share some of our experiences with you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Sergio. Now, Ana Maria Pinto, who is leader transport specialist in the Inter-American Development Bank, an important leader on transportation. Thank you very much for your support and partnership. Please introduce yourself. Thank you.
Everyone, thank you, Sergio, Claudia, for the invitation. I'm Ana Maria Pinto. I'm a lead transport specialist at the Inter-American Development Bank, and I'm in charge of leading our road safety strategy. I just want here to confirm the commitment of the bank to support governments in Latin America to improve the road safety and try to tackle this great challenge that we have in the region. So thank you, and we will have the opportunity to talk more in detail about how we can support the cities during this seminar. Thank you.
Thank you, Ana Maria. Now, Stuart Rides, who is Director of Vision, Head of Insights and Direction. Sorry? Yes. Head of Insights and Direction, Transport for London, England. Stuart, thank you very much for joining. I think you have great messages from London, the city that is doing an amazing job in road safety. Please, Stuart, introduce yourself.
Hello, everybody. It's a great pleasure to join you all for this meeting. My name's Stuart Reed, and I'm responsible for Transport for London's Vision Zero strategy and policy. And it's great to be working with you all to do everything we can to eliminate deaths and serious injuries from transport.
Thank you, Stuart. Welcome. Thank you very much. And Leah Shahun, who is founder and director of Vision Zero Network in the United States. Thank you, Leah, for joining us. I know you are doing an amazing job in the United States. Please introduce yourself. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Leah Shahun, and I run the nonprofit called Vision Zero Network in the US. We're working with more than 45 local communities that have committed to Vision Zero, mainly working through peer exchange to help them learn from each other and to help really encourage best practices for safe systems. So thank you so much for having us.
Thank you, Leah. Thank you for joining us. Before I will ask Etienne to start his presentation, I would like to ask everyone to open your cameras and to say hello for everyone, to see everyone on this panel. Thank you, Claudia. Thank you. It's amazing to see all of these people from different parts of the world joining this effort to spread road safety message. Thank you very much. I hope we will have a very interesting and useful session today. I want to ask Etienne to start his presentation. Thank you very much. Thank you, Claudia.
Obrigado, Sergio, and hi, everybody again. Greetings from Geneva, where it's a really gray and cold day. So when Sergio was reading the list of cities just a few minutes ago, I was like, oh my God, I'd like to be in Lima. I'd like to be in Cusco. I'd like to be in Buenos Aires. I'd like to be in Cali, in Bogota, in all the places you just listed, rather than here in my cold attic. But this is the new reality. So glad to be there nevertheless, to talk a little bit about looking back at 2020 and looking forward at 2021. I'm actually going to look forward even a bit more and look forward really at the next 10 years. Of course, 2020 started off on a big high for road safety, where many of us were in Stockholm in February at the beginning of the year. We had more than 1,500 participants. We had dozens of ministers, more than 120 countries there, talking about the future and about road safety and what needs to happen. And of course, little did we know, a few weeks later, many of us were locked up for several months, and the whole world changed dramatically. And a lot of the momentum was lost. But I think we're in the process of regaining this momentum. As you might know, the UN General Assembly just a few weeks ago adopted a new resolution, and probably the most important resolution the UN has adopted on road safety in the past 15 years. Because on one hand, it declared a decade of action of road safety, 2021-2030. And of course, it's the second decade. We are in the process of finishing the first decade, which led the ground for quite considerable progress. It did elevate the attention. It did get many countries to develop plans and implement them. And it did lead to some success in some countries, including in some of your countries. I can think of Brazil, for example. But it did not lead to the reductions in death and injuries we had hoped at the global level. So now we're getting ready for the second decade of action. I'm just actually coming out of a 2-hour meeting with Claudia and others discussing the plan for that decade, because we are developing a solid plan, which is going to be, on one hand, building on what we have, because I think what we've been doing is the right thing. We've been focusing on the 5 pillars of action in terms of the management of road safety, the vehicles, the infrastructure, road user behavior, and trauma care. And we need to continue doing that, because this is the foundation of road safety. But clearly it has not been enough. We also have to think about the whole system around that. Think about modal shift, moving away from a car-based transportation system to a much more active transportation system where walking and cycling and public transport is made safe and therefore can also be prioritized. We need to think more about our young people, our youth, which, as you know, road traffic crashes have become the leading cause at age 5 already at the global level up to age 30. So we need to prioritize young people. We need to interact more with the private sector. The private sector has such a huge role to play, of course, in the building of the cars and the infrastructure, but also because it has these huge fleets, and we need to interact more and bring the private sector on board and more conscious about the business case for road safety. So we have, I think, a number of new priorities that are emerging while continuing to build this road safety system. And this has been clearly laid out in the Stockholm Declaration, which was adopted in the Stockholm Ministerial Conference, as well as in the new UN General Assembly resolution. So we have a clear target, 50% reduction. We cannot achieve that by focusing only on national governments. We have to work more at the city level, and that's why I'm here talking to you, because I do believe so much in the importance of city leaders and city leadership for road safety. So please count on us in engaging with you more in the coming decade. We also have another very important element in this new UN General Assembly resolution, which is the call for a high-level meeting of the UN General Assembly on road safety in 2022. We have never had a high-level meeting like that. And what does it mean, by the way, a high-level meeting? These meetings are usually held on the day before the opening of the UN General Assembly, and they bring together heads of state to discuss important topics. There's only been very few on health issues. There's been some on HIV, on tuberculosis, and on non-communicable diseases. So having one on road safety is really important, and it will be another opportunity for raising the attention to the topic at the highest level of government, because this is really where it needs to happen. This is not only for ministers of transport or for ministers of health or of interior. This needs to be a comprehensive multi-sectoral issue and response, and therefore it needs to be led at the highest level of government to ensure the right coordination also with finance and development, for example, for foreign affairs and many other ministries, education, that need to be involved. So I think, although today the reality of the world is pretty tricky and difficult and a bit grim, our future for road safety is promising. I think if we all work together and if we all push this common agenda at the national, at the international, and at the city level, we can make the progress that is needed over the next 10 years. So thanks very much for having me. And please count on us in the World Health Organization, in the UN Road Safety Collaboration, to work with you in cities, with cities in the years to come. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Etienne. It is really great to hear from you, and thank you for all your leadership on road safety globally. It is really a pleasure to have you with us. All right, so now we are going to do a recap of what has happened in the past weeks. Let me show my screen again. Okay, so we have had 5 webinars in the past weeks, and we have selected few of the quotes that were said across these webinars, and one that we really like is the one from Soleka Mandela. She said, Vision Zero is an approach that we know works. It is about understanding that road traffic fatalities are both unacceptable and preventable. Our roads must and can be made safe, and we have this solution. This is Soleka Mandela, the Child Health Initiative Global Ambassador, that joined us in the first webinar. So On September 25th, we talk about overcoming the barriers to the safe system approach. And this is really important, as Etienne just mentioned. The new decade of action, the second decade of action, and the Stockholm Declaration are rooted in the safe system approach. So we need to really understand how our cities and our countries can adapt to this new approach to road safety. And there are barriers. So we identify some of them. And here it is the results of the first Mentimeter. As you might recall, the first thing was that the perception of road safety as a personal responsibility, the lack of leadership, and finally the perception that the safe system approach is a luxury item for rich countries only. Very interesting answers. We also had the cost of planning and implementation. And here, Eugenia Maria Rodriguez from the Pan American Health Organization told us to talk about how to have better city health. We have to consider everything as related. In some hospitals, 70% of the beds are occupied by road traffic victims. So she was talking about the need to consider the impact of traffic injuries and deaths on our healthcare capacity. And we talk about what is at the cornerstone of the safe system approach. What are those principles that lead the safe system approach? And we talk about things that might be self-explanatory, but when we go outside to the streets, turns out the streets are built, the system is built for us to not make any mistakes. And we know that humans make mistakes. So we have to start building our systems to pardon these mistakes. Humans are vulnerable to injury. As a matter of fact, very, very vulnerable to injury. Only at 30 kilometers per hour, if a pedestrian is hit, will have 20% of probabilities of dying. The responsibility has to be shared. We have to have our decision makers, our planners, engineers, architects, also ready to respond and to create this safe system. No death or serious injury is acceptable. And finally, we have to act proactively and not reactively. We have 1,350,000 fatalities every year. Those are all cases that tell us where the problem is. So right now we have enough evidence and information to act. The second one was a webinar on bicycle lanes, emergency bicycle lanes. Why? Because due to COVID-19, a lot more people decided to bike. And so when we ask, what is the word that describes your experience with emerging bike lanes in 2020? The first was risk, but also surrounded with opportunity. Again, back to what Etienne was just telling us, we have a great opportunity to really address road safety, but also to work on making our cities places that are more sustainable, that are more hospitable for all of us. So addressing the risk in bicycle infrastructure is key. And here are the answers to your Mentimeter. What are the main questions about the politics of emergent bike lanes? And the first one was around the community, how to engage them. The second one was concerns about creating more traffic congestion. And finally, how to empower political leaders to promote emergent bike lanes. And here we have a quote from Anders Harman from the city of Oslo. He was telling us that if children have to use the sidewalk because the bike lane is not safe enough, that's probably a sign that you should have chosen a different design. So this is a very simple and straightforward way to start measuring how our cycle lanes have been designed. We also presented a new piece of research that has been done with the support from the Dutch Cycling Embassy, the Danish Cycling Embassy, the League of American Bicyclists, and the city of Oslo, with WRI on safety and bicycle lane design. And we have, I'm gonna point out, because this is a recap, only to the principles. So we are talking about safe speeds. Speeds really matter when we have cycling in our cities. We should not have any speeds that are over 50 kilometers per hour if we want to promote cycling and more people walking as well. We need to have a network approach, safe design, in particular intersections and how the lanes are designed, what is the width, for example. Communications and engagement, the community has to be very present. And finally, management and enforcement. And we learned quite a bit with our friend Alexandre Santa Cruz about Paris and how they are really working on this network approach. You can see the city of Paris, and they are really developing a network of bicycle lanes, and even making big decisions like shifting the bus lane, one lane to the left, to be able to have the cyclists on one-way direction next to the curve. So very impressive the work done there and in many other places. Then we talk about children and road safety. This is one of the statistics that really hurts my heart. The #1 cause of death around the world for children 5 to 14 and young adults 15 to 29 are traffic crashes. So this is something we definitely need to work on. And here, when we ask what dedicated road safety planning for children exists in your city, many of you answered that you are working on 30 kilometers per hour zones, that you are working on traffic calming around the schools, and low speed zones around school districts. One of our invitees was Lars Ekman, and he told us, we have to understand that people make mistakes at the core of the safe system approach. Look at this. It's interesting that society seems to have more acceptance for well-educated adults doing the mistake of not keeping to the speed limit rather than accepting children's mistakes. So we need to really design a city for our kids to be able to use that public space and to be safe. Anidas Gupta, the director of the cities program at WRI, told us what makes a child-friendly city. Accessible green space, absolutely important for them, in particular now that we are in COVID-19. This is a space for children to be able to have some playtime, some exercise, safe walking and cycling infrastructure, low speed zones, car-free streets, safe school zones, and of course, clean air zones. Now, speed is absolutely at the core of the safe system approach and one of the tough cookies, as we said. So we asked you, which is the most common challenge you experience when seeking to reduce speeds in your city? And you told us, well, public concerns about increasing congestion and travel time. Then we have political opposition. It is very difficult to communicate with communities. And finally, legal and regulatory barriers. Here, Blair Turner joined us, and it was really impressive to find that in an ESRA survey of 35,000 respondents across 32 countries, less than 20% find it acceptable to drive faster than the speed limit, and less than 10% in built-up areas, in urban areas. Most people believe that the speed is a cause of road crashes, up to 80%, and up to 90% suggested that traffic rules should be stricter. So when we hear those very loud voices against managing speeds and making speeds safer in our cities, let's remember that they are the minority. And, you know, we have to bust some myths about the speed management. And here are the ones that Blair present. Speed isn't a major cause of road crashes. Well, it is. The public and communities want higher speeds. Not necessarily. What they don't want is to travel long distances and to be stuck in traffic. Lower speeds have a negative economic impact, with 1,350,000 people dead, with young people and children. It is impossible to believe that there is an economic impact if we manage our speeds and make them safer. Speed cameras are just a way to generate more money for governments. In the past, there have been a lot of mistakes with the speed cameras. But right now, yesterday, for example, Cali in Colombia started with a speed management program and reduced the speed citywide to 50 kilometers per hour. They are calling speed cameras speed saving lives cameras, and it's so correct how they are calling it. Education and training will solve the speed problem, but not really. We really need to act on giving our cities speeds that are safe. And finally, we talk about data. We need data to be able to prioritize. And we ask you, what information does your city require to move from isolated interventions to a safe system approach? And we discuss about location of crashes. We need to have more geolocated data, seriousness of injury, which is something our data is not recording yet. It's mostly traffic fatalities. And finally, speed of road users. What is the speed that we have in our cities? Here, I really like this quote from Sarah Whitehead from Vital Strategies. She said, nobody has perfect data. Everyone has weaknesses in their data system when they start in on this path of a safe system approach. That should never be a barrier, a deterrent to achieving the safe system. And here, Kenneth Svensson from Sweden, that has been working quite a bit on this topic, told us, even though you don't have the best data with the Vision Zero approach, you can still work proactively. But of course, with data, you can do it better. Now, when we talk about Vision Zero, it seems a little overwhelming, right? So we need to start having some intermediate outcomes. And this is part of what Stephen presented that has been adopted by the European Union. We need to have intermediate outcomes and targets that are based on key performance indicators. Then we will go to interim targets, for example, 50% reduction on deaths and serious injuries by 2030. And then we have a long-term goal, which is eliminating deaths and serious injuries by 2050. It has been a wonderful journey with all of you, and I'm very grateful that you were able to join all these webinars with high-level experts. So now let's see what comes next, and I would like to ask my colleague Alejandro to help us with the Mentimeter poll today. Alejandro, take it away.
Thank you very much, Claudia, for the great presentation. And thank you everybody for being here today in this last webinar of the year. As Claudia mentioned, I will go over the Menti questions in 1 second. Just going to go ahead and share my screen. Claudia, looks like you'll have to stop sharing your screen. Excellent, thank you. All right, so first we're going to ask everybody to go to www.menti.com and enter the code 8785768. And as you can see, here are the questions of the first sets of the first question. Here's the answers. What topic do you think your city would like to focus on moving forward? You have first comprehensive road safety planning, then speed, followed by children, data, road infrastructure, and then cycling infrastructure. I'll give you about a minute to select up to 3 answers. We already see a couple coming in, so thank you for taking the time to do this. Again, you can use your cell phone or your computer to go to www.menti.com, enter the code 8785768. We have a couple more answers coming in. We'll give you another minute, and then we'll move over to the next question. Excellent, thank you. I see quite a few on comprehensive road safety planning and cycling infrastructure, as that is an important topic these days during the pandemic, when a lot of cities are implementing emergent cycle lanes. And looks like we're almost ready to move on to the next question. So I will go ahead and activate the next slide. It looks like we already have a few answers. Next question is, what do you need the most? And this is considering the challenges ahead during this global pandemic. We have first political leadership support, then financial resources, then technical capacity, more data, and collaboration across sectors. There are lots of answers coming in, so thank you. We'll give you another minute for this question number 2. You can also enter up to 3 answers here. We see obviously a lot of responses on political leadership and support, very important, as well as financial resources in collaboration across sectors. Crucial, challenging, yet very crucial. Okay, so we have almost 20 answers. And thanks again for taking the time to provide your answers. And I'll head over back to Claudia to start the panel discussion.
Thank you very much, Alejandro. Great. So now I would like to call my panelists, if you can kindly turn on your cameras. Leah, I see Stuart. And we should have Sergio as well. Very good. Mariana, great. Ana Maria, if you are ready, you can turn on your camera and let's get started. Very good. So we have about, let's say 40 minutes, a little bit less than that. And I just would like to ask you to help our cities. As you have seen, they are very keen on, started working on their comprehensive road safety plans. They also are very keen to talking about cycling in children. Those are very present needs in their cities. So I would like to get started with Sergio or Sergio, because Bogota is one of the cities in Latin America that has embraced the concept of the safe system approach, Vision Zero. And I just would like for you to tell us, first of all, how that process happened, and then what are the main points that you have focused on? What is working? What is giving results? Please, Sergio.
Yes, hi, Claudia, thank you. So, this is, I think, the most important message that we can give to our cities is that this is a very difficult process. No matter where you do it, no matter how you do it, it's going to be long, it's going to be very difficult, and you're going to have a lot of pressure, to try to make you detour from where you want to go to really it's an obstacle race. And I was looking at the responses that the people were giving, and when I was seeing that political leadership was one of the ones getting the most responses, I was totally nodding, because I think that's probably the most important factor, at least to start the process. Because of course you also need money, but you're not going to get money if you don't have the political support. So it's kind of like a chicken and egg. And we've been lucky in Bogota. We have to recognize that luck has been a part of the results that we're getting, because we were able to achieve something that is not very common, at least not in Latin America, which is to have continuity, in the public policies. A lot of times you have this really good idea, you set up your program, we have measures that last for 4 years, and at the end, then you get, the political scenario is always like a pendulum, right? Everywhere. It goes to one side, one or two elections later, it's gonna move the other side. And what happened in the past is that then you get the people that, of course, they want to, put their flag on the ground and just claim a totally, different objective, totally different vision. And that's always very difficult, of course. And we've been lucky in that we started at the beginning of a new administration, very focused on putting road safety as the primary goal for mobility in Bogota. And so we had 4 years in which we were able to work, with $I, with Bloomberg, with IDB, with World Bank, with all these great organizations that gave us a lot of support, to work. And we had, very good results, good enough that when we had a change in administration this year, this past January, with a new mayor from a totally different political party, we were able to convince her that we needed to continue moving towards achieving Vision Zero. And like I said, there's so much that we can do on the technical side, but if you don't have that continuity, it's going to be very difficult. And getting a little more into the details, I think, of course, you have to have this, but to get that, and again, it's kind of like a chicken and egg, you need to have data, right? And you need to be able to show your leaders what you're talking about. Because when we're talking before about some of the difficulties that we're having in the cities to trying to move ahead with, implement Vision Zero and reduce speeds and everything, there are many factors, but I think there's one that kind of like links them all together. And that is that for most people, road safety is not the primary subject in their minds, especially for politicians, and unless you know somebody that have died in an accident, or a friend or a relative or co-worker or something, for most people, that's just not an issue. So when you start talking about you need to reduce speeds, then of course you get everybody talking about congestion and more emissions, competitivity for the city, whatever, because they don't see it as a problem. And I think that's the bottom line. We need to make the reduction of speed a problem, a public health problem. You know, kind of like what COVID did to us. I don't know if your city, but we started getting, you know, the first cases of COVID late in February of this year, and it's amazing the amount of things that not only the city government but citizens have changed because of COVID. They totally changed. We totally changed the way we work, the way we move, the way we shop, the way we educate our kids, because we saw this as a problem. So of course, you know, the magnitude is a bit different, but you know, road safety, it's also a pandemic. It's also a big public health crisis that we're having. And so I think the bottom line message is that we really need to transmit that message, that citizens understand and believe that this is a problem. Because otherwise it's just gonna be, you know, kind of like us engineers and planners and everything, kind of like, you know, raising our hands and not getting a lot of attention. And just to finish, there's one point that kind of like links all of this together, at least I guess at the city agency, within a city agency, and that is the management of our agencies, you know, for example, Secretary of Mobility, it's also temporary, you know, it changes when the majors change, sometimes even faster than that. But there's people that's, you know, stay there for many years. And the problem, and that's why I was raising the point of the importance of continuity, is that every time you get a new Secretary of Mobility, every time you get a new mayor, you get new ideas, right? And new priorities. And for these people that have seen these changes 5, 10 times, maybe they don't feel that motivated. So for us, it was really, really important to invest a lot in capacity building first within our agency, so that our traffic engineers believe in what we're trying to do. I'm sure you all have a lot of examples of that, but that was probably the first major obstacle that we have to remove, because of course they were trained to move vehicles and move them as fast as possible. So when you get these new people telling them, hey, we need to slow down, we need to take out the pedestrian, they're like, what? So, you know, this is where we need WRI, Bloomberg, etc., to help us transmit that message first within our agencies, so that next time there's a new upper management, they're the ones that are going to be asking them to do it, to continue what we were doing before.
Thank you very much, Sergio. That is really excellent. So political leadership, really important, but also how we build our foundation within our city governments. And with that, I would like to turn to Stuart, because you have been leading in London the Vision Zero plan. And we have a city in Latin America. Sergio has said, you know, it wasn't easy. How was in London? How was the process, and what are your recommendations? What are your tips, Stuart, for our Latin American cities to start working on the safe system approach?
Thanks, Claudia. Well, nothing is ever easy, is it? But I think the things which have helped us in London are, firstly, the recognition that Vision Zero has to be part of a wider policy package, and the recognition that some of the ambitions that the political leadership in London, that the Mayor of London has for sustainable activity, for improvements to air quality and environmental quality, for the mode share of active travel modes, for transport to be inclusive, and for Vision Zero, are all mutually interlocking and reinforcing objectives. And so Vision Zero doesn't sit out on its own to one side as a sort of isolated piece of policy. It's actually a critical enabler for some of the wider ambitions that the Mayor has for London, and that Transport for London has for London as a city. And to see ourselves as an agency which supports supports a growing and dynamic city rather than just as an organisation that runs transport. So I think has been important for us, is to put Vision Zero and road safety right into the middle of that broader policy context, where it's understood that you can't advance one part of the agenda without advancing all parts of the agenda. And I think the second thing, and I think I may have said this in one of the previous webinars, it's very easy in a big city administration or a big agency like Transport for London for Vision Zero to become a bit technocratic, to be understood in terms of data and trends and engineering standards and so on. And whilst those things are important, it's also really important that this is understood as a human issue, and that one of the things we've done, which has been very valuable in strengthening the political commitment and support for Vision Zero, is to give a voice to the people who are the victims of road collisions, because it's very easy to sit in a meeting and look at a graph and make a decision that you're not going to do something because you don't like the graph. It's much harder to look somebody in the face who has been bereaved or disabled or had their future changed as a result of a road collision and tell them that Vision Zero doesn't matter. So I think this is part of that broader coalition building that you've talked about, and into that coalition need to come the voices of the third sector, the voices of the community. And those voices are out there, those people are out there, but they're not always the people that will shout in a debate, and you need to bring them actively into the discussion and into the policy arena. And then I think the other thing is that I think safe systems is a fantastic idea. It's a wonderful framework and it's really helpful. But I think what you have to do is take those concepts and really look at your own specific versions of the road safety problem in your city and work out how safe systems applies most effectively in your particular context, and go very hard after the things which will make the biggest difference in your locality. So for London, that's been, we've gone very strongly after lowering speed limits. We've gone very strongly after segregated infrastructure for cyclists and better street design for people walking. We've gone very strongly after some of the most high-risk vehicles on the London's road network, like heavy goods vehicles and to an extent buses, and looked at the standards of construction and design of those vehicles. We haven't tried to do everything all at once. And so I think working out where your own local focus should be or needs to be is a key success factor.
Very, very good. Thank you very much, Stuart. I really, really like how you have framed the political economy. What is really interesting in your cities? Because we are all suffering is either air quality, is congestion, is inequality, and all those entry points at some point cross-cut with road safety. And that's the moment where we need to start building that broader agenda, as you were saying, Stuart. Also, super important to, go away a little bit from these big numbers, 1,350,000, 4,400. What is that? At the end of the day is the people that are suffering. I keep repeating this horrendous fact. The first cause of death for children are traffic crashes. How can we as humanity can accept that? And finally, tailor it to your needs. In the case of London, they identify, okay, the speeds are too high. If we want a sustainable city, then we need to lower the speeds. We need to provide safe space for cycling and pedestrians. At the bottom of that, if you can see, is this rejection of just blaming the victim, not even the truck driver, because one thing that London has been doing is working on how that vehicle is designed and how we can help that driver to be able to stop quicker that big machine when we are asking that person to drive in a city that is very dense. So what is really what you need to be targeting in your city? And with that, thank you very much, Stuart. I want to shift now to Leah Shahom, because you've been working in the United States, supporting and following the initiatives across many US cities that are really interested in shifting to the safe system approach. So if you see there are certain similarities with the Vision Zero Challenge, Leah, in the sense that it is a network that is forming. All these cities are really keen of rejecting death and serious injuries from their systems. And you are several steps in front of us. So can you tell us, what are you learning from this network? What are the struggles of the city, and what are those wins that you are seeing as well? Thank you.
Thank you, Claudia. You know, I'll say I've been very pleasantly surprised, but truly surprised that we've had the interest, mostly from the local level or the municipal level in Vision Zero. You know, if you'd asked me 6 or 7 years ago, would we see elected leaders, mayors, and others, even folks like police chiefs and transportation directors, would we see them stand up and publicly say, we're going to reach the goal of zero traffic deaths or severe injuries? You know, I wouldn't have thought that was possible even 6 or 7 years ago. So I'm really pleasantly surprised that we've seen the growth we have of Vision Zero commitment across cities mainly. That said, I think, you know, a big part of our challenge, similar to others, is there is this disconnect, I think, between the goal of Vision Zero and the of course, shared goal we have of safety for everyone. Everyone believes that, wants that, I think, yet there's not a deep understanding, and certainly not yet a deep acceptance of the safe systems principles to do the work. So I'll say, as positive as some change has been, and I really want to give credit to folks, especially in places like New York City, Seattle, across the country, cities are doing good work, yet too often we're seeing the embrace of Vision Zero feel like it is signing onto a slogan or a PR, you know, public relations campaign. And it's with good intentions. I don't want to criticize. It's people who do want the best. But I think what we're seeing is this really important time that we have to also emphasize that means change. And as people have said, change can be hard, right? So, you know, I think we're really, we're acknowledging, back to that political question, because I think that's so critical, even when we have, let's say, a support from the mayor or a leader of the transportation department, even when we have that, we need the public pressure, we need the public will. And as others have said, that means personal stories, it means elevating the voices of victims and people who've suffered. It means also, I would say, investing in community-based advocacy. I think we can't expect the public sector to change the culture on its own. I think we really need to say, you know, who are these advocacy groups or potential advocacy groups that can be out there pushing us, that can be at the hearings, reminding us of that personal importance. So I would really love to see more investment in, and by that I mean funding, resources in the advocacy sector, who is going to really make the big change. And then I'd say for us, you know, another big learning is that I think this may be different in some places, but the issues of equity, especially when it comes to racial equity and income equity. For instance, you know, we know that people walking in the US, people of color walking in the US are twice as likely to die, hit by cars and die, as well as low-income people, twice as likely to die when they're hit by cars walking. So that is a severe problem. Yet frankly, our federal government doesn't talk about equity in relation to transportation and mobility nearly enough. Now we're starting to see that happen from cities, and from leaders, especially at the local level. So, a lot of our work is kind of grassroots up. It's not the most efficient way to do things, but it's the way it's happening. So we're really trying to emphasize how do we help those advocates have strong voices, and how do we really center equity in this work? As others have said, Vision Zero and safe mobility is intimately tied to climate change work. It's intimately tied to equity and live a healthy living work as well. So I think we need to do a better job on all of that. But we have lots to learn from all of you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Leah, for sharing with us all the work and the learnings that you have from these cities, and really interesting, because I personally believe that we are dealing with years of trying to do road safety in a way that is not effective. And that really equals to blaming the victim, right? Why pedestrians are crossing here, or look at that cyclist. Why is that cyclist here, right? When we really need to change our minds and accept, people make mistakes. They are really vulnerable to kinetic energy. How can we protect them, right? That's the main question. Instead of blaming, the exercise is really, what else can you do, right? And what you are saying, having that community engaged and really pressuring the politicians so that it doesn't stay in a slogan, right? We are Vision Zero, but we continue doing business as usual. It's striking to me how last year, 2019, New York City had 29 cyclists killed in the roads. One of them was an immigrant that was coming from Bangladesh. He came crossing the border from Mexico and arrived in New York City, started working as a delivery boy with his bicycle, and was killed in a traffic crash in his bicycle. These 29 fatalities ended with New York City committing $1.7 billion for cycling infrastructure. That's where we really can see the mouth, that slogan, going into concrete action, that we are going to give this safe infrastructure to people. So very, very importantly, and we hope there is a closer connection between the Vision Zero network in the United States and the Latin American network, because I think we're working on the same topics. Thank you, Leah, for sharing with us. And now I want to turn to Mariana. Mariana Alegre, you come from Lima, and in Lima there has been a lot of work right now in cycling precisely. Due to COVID-19, this is one of the areas that has grown quite a bit, and I know you work with the community. So can you tell us, how do you see the safe system approach being taken? What is the process that you foresee for a city like Lima to take the safe system approach in light of the experience that you are having with cycling and the needs the people have there?
Thank you very much, Claudia, and everyone. It was very great to hear everyone talking before and addressing such important topics as climate, pollution, and quality of air, and so. So yes, here in Lima and in several cities in our country, cycling have been pushed over through the skies in terms of numbers because of the pandemic. We experienced one major crisis in terms of health, and have lost a lot of lives here in Peru. And at the same time, we have experienced a really strict lockdown in the country. We still have some of the restrictions in order right now. That's why lots of people turn to bicycles and change their ways of moving around the city in major ways. But of course, the public transit, which is the most used and the most important system for making the cities work, have also been are still being collapsed and absolutely with little investment on making the trips on public transit safe for everyone and COVID safe too. So going back to biking and public spaces, we have been saying for a while, kind of a joke with friends and some experts here in mobility, that we have been demanding mayors to make bike lanes for a lot of years. And before COVID, we start saying, so now we are not only asking mayors to make the bike lanes, but also asking them to make them well, to design them well. And now with the COVID crisis, we are not only demanding the mayors to make the bike lanes and to make them well, but also to actually make them stay. Because I think that most of the public policies that are being happening right now are still with the view of making these temporal bike lanes in order to actually going back to normality. And this normality is actually not working for anyone. We have been experiencing lots of fatalities and losses and people being injured in different traffic accidents. And that's also why we want authorities to implement a comprehensive plan, not only for urban mobility, but for public spaces. Just to mention a couple of situations. The first, we have been with a strict lockdown also for cars, for private cars. We have been having them not being permitted to be used, except some of them who have some permits. So that's why the bike start to flourish. But the day they actually allow the cars to go and being used again, we have our first cyclist being killed. And the second day, we have a second cyclist being killed. And the third day, we have a third one. And the fourth day, it was a fourth person that has been killed in the streets. Of course, it was regarding the speed of the cars and and this, of course, we already know, the disparity in between the force, the power, the massiveness of the cars in comparison of the cyclists and of course the pedestrians. So this show us how difficult is to actually start thinking and to make this change of mind, that we are more comfortable knowing that we actually need to have a whole generation transformation, which we are getting close. Those now the people in power are still getting older, and younger people are stepping forward and start taking some areas in different government and private sector and so. But we have also been, we also have a major political crisis like 2 weeks ago, and probably today is another one going to happen. I guess we have 3 presidents in less than a month, maybe a fourth one is going to come, I don't know. But we have also been taken out to streets. So there's like millions of Peruvians get out to streets, and we have the biggest massive bike ride in terms to protest against the problems and the authoritarianism and the dictatorship, but also to demand the reposition of the Sundays being held only for people and not for cars, which was also one of the public policies that was persisted until 3 weeks ago. So we then have this amazing critical mass growing and getting stronger, with a lot of collectives and movements getting to be more and more visible and more capable to actually put their agenda on the public setting. And that's quite important. So we still have lots to demand. We still have lots to do in order to save lives and in order to become actually a better city and better cities here in Peru. But I guess we are going into the right way. but we actually need a national plan for public spaces that includes bike lanes, but also areas for biking and recreational bike programs, as we already have, and there are lots in the world, all over the cities to control the demand and start giving opportunities to people. But we need to address this in order to actually have an economic point of view. It is not enough for the decision-making people here to talk about health and to talk about social benefits and to talk about environmental issues. We need to talk to them about reactivation of the economy, and in order to make them being aware that it is as much as important than open a mall, to actually open the streets in order to make people's have more progress, then we need to actually measure that too. So this is why we are trying to get back to the neighborhoods in the more micro level to start promoting businesses, small little businesses, informal ones, yes, because it is what the people are doing and have been doing for a lot of time. But with public space and opening streets to people, not for cars, we can do that. So that's what I wanted to share. Thank you very much, Claudia, and everyone.
Thank you very much, Mariana. How fascinating that two crises, right? Almost back to back, the COVID crisis and then the political crisis. In both of them, with a big component on cycling at the core of it. And cycling that we want not only to be safe, but also to stay, which is really great. It's interesting to see again a shift in the groups that are leading the country and having more people, more young people, and all this reactivation of the economy really playing a big role on how things can change, how safety can be also part of that conversation. Thank you very much, Mariana, for sharing, and best of luck today. And Ana Maria, so we've been hearing about different cities, and you work at the Inter-American Development Bank. You have been supporting road safety quite a bit. Now, road safety in the safe system approach is quite different and is interlocked with sustainability. So how do you see the future of the cities in Latin America? Right now, mass transportation is going through a big problem, and more cities are really keen on putting more cycling there. How do you see the financing and the support for these two main areas in cities?
Thank you, Claudia, and very inspiring interventions and by all the panelists.
Dear Ana Maria, would you be able to come a little closer to the microphone because we can hear you?
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me now better?
Wonderful.
Okay, sorry. So I was just saying that was very inspiring listening to all the panelists and made me think about one of the issues that are really important for some of the organizations that are here or are around the world supporting road safety, and it's this responsibility that we have in making sure that road safety keeps being a priority across different governments or political leadership. Because as Sergio was saying was how we can help that every time that a new mayor or a new political party comes into office, us from the bank, for example, can play a key role on helping like road safety being a priority. And that's something that we try to kind of enforce on all of our transport specialists around Latin America to make sure that road safety is in the agenda, that we can offer practical solutions that can be implemented in the political period, because I think that that's one of the challenges that we have, that sometimes is how we can take road safety from this like kind of general and theoretical almost like discussion to practical solutions that can give them results within the time frame of the political term. So saying that, we are now financing, as you know, main urban transport projects in Latin America. We're financing the Metro, Bogotá, Lima Metro, Quito Metro, Sao Paulo and many more, not just metros, but urban transport system. We find it very difficult to implement and consolidate these transport systems. And saying this and like linking this to cycling infrastructure, to me, and I don't know if some of the panelists agree, sometimes it keeps being like a something like, it's like idealistic, maybe not in Bogota, but sometimes it's like kind of, you want to solve a problem, as Sergio was saying, of moving cars and people quickly, and then this like cyclists still some kind of like an activist or a small group of people trying to change a thing. And I know there are lots of people that use this as a real means of transport for going to work and not just for recreational, but it's still a small but growing part of the population are doing it. So how can you really prioritize resources for what still is a small part of the population moving? And we haven't talked here about motorcycles, which I think is a huge part of the agenda that we need to prioritize. So how I see the financing, I think the way of doing it, but as I say, is like how we can solve the problems that we have in our cities that are still like quite big, and I don't know what to say, the word messy, but still have that issue of being not this ideal kind of, sorry to make the comparison, but European city with everything is put into place, and we still have really some of really chaotic problems. We still are not managing to build the infrastructure projects in time and in cost, and with lots of corruption and real problems, and then how we can implement this into the agenda. One thing that I find and that we can use and help the countries doing is put this in the design of the project from the start. So not just like this, no, we arrive late when the project is finishing out. Remember that you have to do zebra crossings. Remember that you have to put, how we can really from the design of this project, put the cycling and all the pedestrian infrastructure from the beginning. And then the cost of doing this is small. So that's something that we're trying really hard to do, and we it's in our guidelines, and we're trying to enforce this. And then, as I say, how we can help them, the cities, to keep and do this as a permanent policy. We're working, and I here invited all the cities that are connected, that reach to us, to our transport specialists in every country, to help them do this, like to help them outline the plans. We have technical cooperation resources that we can really put into place, and we're working together with WRI and all the partners to be able to help the cities on a more applied process. I know it's not easy, but I think we could do that. And just to finalize that, how we can really make this jump on from this theoretical approach to really practical approach. And that's why we are as well working on this program of safer routes to school, which I feel that is a really nice program. It's very local, and as well have, to me, a political appeal. I can see a mayor and going and in every schools and celebrating that they making the school safe. Is low cost. The intervention is proven, and it's proven that reduce in very short amount of time the fatalities, at least for the kids walking to schools, can involve parents, the education community, and I think it's a long-hanging fruit. So saying that, we are prioritizing as well, because I feel us at the bank have been all around the place. We arrive and say, oh, you can do this and data and that. So now we're prioritizing, and this program of Safe Route to School is our priority, and I offer here the guide, the help, and all the support that we can do to implement these programs, given that it's our children who are dying the most. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ana Maria. Very interesting to hear all the work that the Inter-American Development Bank is doing at different levels, right? Mass transportation, but also reflecting on how to provide financing for cycling. As you said, right now it seems to be just a minority that is using cycling, but maybe if we give the right infrastructure, build it, and they will come. So it is really great to hear what the IDB is doing in the Americas. And with that, I would like to thank you very much, Leah, Mariana, Ana Maria, Sergio, and Stuart, for joining us today. This has been a wonderful conversation. And I would like to call Mats-Åke Berlin from the Swedish Transport Administration. He's the director of the Vision Zero Academy, one of the places where the concept of the safe system approach was crafted. To close us and close the series of webinars, the Vision Zero Challenge webinars. Thank you very much, Mats-Åke, to you.
Thank you, Claudia. Thanks for this opportunity. It's great to hear the panel and all the discussions has been today. And it started with Etienne, and what he says is extremely promising, I would say, because he said that this problem with road traffic injuries is really high now on the agenda, on the global agenda. And now we even talking about a high-level meeting in UN. And I used to say that this global interest for traffic injuries started in 2004. It's time before 2004 and the time after 2004. So we're moving now slowly, yes, but step by step we're moving this agenda now up, this problem up on the global agenda. And it's also great to hear you, Claudia, when you're talking about all this webinar and all this knowledge that we have about this problem and all these different aspects and how we try to integrate safety now to a much broader agenda that is not only about safety, it's about the whole society. And a matter of fact, I think that when you think about it a little bit more, safety is actually one of the main barrier now to make other things happen. For example, a much broader cycling or walking, because people have to feel secure and safety when they're doing this, and safety become one of the major barriers. So if we are successful in our achievement, then we will also contribute to the rest of this more of the important sustainable development goals. So that's very important to keep that in mind. And when we hear this panel today, then and all this aspect of what I will say the implementation of a concept like Vision Zero, it's very obvious that while our society and we as humans is very conservative, we like business as usual, but that's not possible. We have to move now from business usual and transform this transport system to something very different. The good thing is that we have a lot of knowledge. We have so much knowledge now that we don't even have to chasing all this black spot or all this killed and so on. We can use data and knowledge that we have developed in other countries now to start to become proactive in road safety. But in the same time, what we need now is leadership. And we need people who can manage this to happen. And it is you guys. I can't see you now, but you are very important now to take all these policies and all this knowledge now and move this forward. And I think this webinar and others webinar, and actually what we try to do now in this Vision Zero Academy is also important, because we have to discuss this among all these people now. We can hope for political support and so on, but probably in some cases, in some countries we have luckily to have it. In some other countries or in cities, we have to creating this. We have to manage this. We have to work with these issues, and therefore we need people like you to start to discuss these things, and together we can develop a kind of knowledge of how to make things happen, to manage these things. And that will be, as you all heard today, that will be a great balancing act. Because on the one hand, we would like to humanize this problem. We need to bring that up, you know, it's humans who are killed and serious injuries, and it's a catastrophe for this individual and the whole family. But in the same time, we need to use technology, data and technology. So we have to balance this, you know, this bureaucrat, systematic work and plans and that kind of thing. In the same time, we have to remember what we're working with, and we need to use it also, because we have to make sure that people understand that this is flesh and blood in the end. And in the same time, we have to focus, we have to make sure that we really contribute to safety. In the same time, we have to mainstream safety into a broader agenda. So it's not an easy task, it's a very difficult task, but I like this whole discussion today, and I would like you to feel and understand that you play a very important role to make this happen in all your cities. So with this word, I just would like to thank you for this opportunity to be part in this Vision Zero Challenge, and we it's been a very difficult year, of course, for every one of us, but now we start to plan for the next year, and hopefully we will be able to do more things of this next year. Yes, thank you, Claudia.
Thank you so much, Matsoke, for all the support that you and your team has given to the Vision Zero Challenge throughout all the preparation and deployment. We look forward very much to continue working with you as the cities will start reflecting and putting together their plans. We will come back to you for advice, as well as all our partners and panelists. With that, I just want to closure the event in this moment, and just to thank all our partners that you have seen there. In particular, a big thanks to each of our panelists that have put their time to come and share with you all the information that you need to build your safe system plan, or to start working in one topic backed on the safe system approach. I also would like to thank my team. You can see here a lot of names. It's been a big effort for many of our colleagues in WRI. They have been helping quite a bit. So big thanks to you all for all your work. Thank you very much. I wish you all happy holidays, and we will be back in 2020 to start rolling our sleeves and seeing how we can build safe system plans for your cities. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.